What's going on, guys? You already know what this is. This is the RPO College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jerome Jones, and I'm here with my guy, the man, the myth, the legend. You already know who he is, Mr. Ray Roberts. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, Jerome. How are you?
I'm good, man. Good, man. Hey, we got less than a month to the NFL draft, Ray. I feel
Yes,
like
sir.
it came super fast. I mean, I can't believe it just here. It's almost here already, man. It's just
It's funny, Jerome. Like, I remember when I was younger, and I'd be like, man, I can't wait to draft. But you know what? Now, I just kind of like just sit back and let it come to me because, man, it comes by quick now. So
yeah. I think now I'm the same way, Ray. Like before, I used to be like, I can't wait, and now I just kind of like let it come. Like Inside the Hashes, CEO, we've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, kind of get players interviews, and we're about to just start dropping a lot of player interviews very soon. So doing all that, you kind of lose track of how soon the draft is gonna come, and it's what 3.5 weeks, something like that. I cannot wait. As you guys already know, or you might, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, this is the College Football Podcast. We do the draft on this podcast. So any off-season stuff involving college football, going into the draft, transitioning to the next part of our podcast, which is the Air It Out podcast, which should be airing out this week, hopefully. Shout out to you guys out there in our brother podcast. But this is like the transition part where we take our guys and we transition to them. So we've been doing a weekly rankings. This week we'll be doing wide receivers. Very exciting time right now because I know a lot of you guys, other wide receivers, we already went through the offensive line, quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, all of that. So if you haven't seen that already, you can either finish this out or you can pause, watch those ones, and then get back to this one. And next week, we'll be getting into our second mock draft, which would be both Ray's and my list, which would be very cool. This is the third one?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Ray, time flies. All right, I'm sorry. Our third mock draft. Didn't even realize that. We will be having one other one right before the draft, probably the day before. Because since we usually air on Wednesdays, the draft is on Thursday, so we usually do one right before, and that's usually our biggest podcast. But this will be the post free agency, pre-draft, all that. So we're gonna be doing our jets. But right now we're gonna be talking about wide receivers and our top 5 wide receivers. Ray, before we get into who are our top receivers, I'm gonna talk about this wide receiver class.
Good class, great class. I think that tight end and wide receiver are probably, and maybe offensive linemen are probably the best, the most depth of anything. So
I agree. It's a very deep wide receiver class. I will say, as most of the draft is very top heavy. I feel like this position is not top heavy like the rest of the draft. It's kind of the opposite of how the rest of the draft is, where it's not really top heavy. You might have 1 or 2 guys at the top, and kind of guys trickle down, and then everybody kind of bunched in at one point, which is the wide receiver depth. So you can get a lot of wide receiver depth here. I'm not sure how many wide receiver ones you can get out of this. I'm sure you can, but it's not a lot of them. There's a lot of role-playing guys playing the slot, guys that maybe wide receiver 2, that kind of situation that I believe in, right?
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that there's a lot of guys like the first. I see there's probably a handful, like 3 or 4 guys that could be first-round talents.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see a bunch of guys that are going to be scheme specific, like you said, like whatever offense you're going to fit in, that's who's probably going to take you. But there's like 30 or more guys that are draftable wide receivers.
Yeah,
so that in itself is a lot of volume. But yeah, like you said, I mean, true number ones, I see 3 guys right now off the top of my head that have the ability to be number 1 quality wide receivers. There's going to be more than that, I'm assuming. But right now, between the top 3 guys, I think all 3 of them will probably be first-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
And they are the kind of guys that could develop into, like, number one wide receiver. So
definitely, and as we always know, no matter what draft or whatever, things happen in between. The draft process and afterwards. So we might see more first round picks, but not first round picks. Number one receivers, and we're anticipating we might not see as many. Especially at the top. Maybe some of these out. So it happens every year. Somebody might emerge. Somebody might not play up to potential. It's a lot of situations like that. So I just want to put out that disclaimer that this is our pre-draft evaluations. What we think as far as pre-draft. I mean, it's really hard to tell exactly how a player will play without seeing what scheme they're going to be in, who's their teammates going to be, who's their coaches. Once that kind of goes in line, we can get a little bit better understanding of how a player might play. But even then, it's just always kind of a wild card situations, injuries.
That's the problem with wide receiver. It always depends on what offense are you playing in,
quarterback,
scheme, and what quarterback. Absolutely. Some of these guys are going to be more vertical guys. Some of them are going to be like more possession type of guy. Mm-hmm. It's up to the teams to figure out which guy they want.
100%. All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to give you our top 5 list. So, like as always, with the wide receivers, we're going to do our top 5. We're going to start from 5 all the way up. Ray might have a 5A and 5B. I don't have one today, but he might have a 5A and 5B. So just be aware that might be like one of those tweener kind of fives that he can not be in his top 5. And from the look of it, it look like he has one. So, Ray, let you start off. What you got for me?
I mean, I do have a 5A and 5B, but it's mostly because I have Josh Downs from North Carolina, who I think could be a nice slot guy, a route runner. I wouldn't call him a possession guy because he's not that big. He's like 5'10", 180, but he's built pretty well. I think he's a day 2 pick for sure. And I have Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee at 5A. And then again, it depends on if you want a route runner of these guys will probably both be taken in the second round. And if you want a route runner, you take Josh Downs. If you want a guy that can take the top off your defense, you take Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee. I mean, this again, scheme specific. What is your offense going to look like, and what do you want these guys to do in your offense? So.
100%. Yeah, I like you guys. Unfortunately, I don't have either of those guys in my top 5, which I'm going to get into in a second. But my guy is going to be a guy that I've been watching for a while as a receiver in the college football rankings. I think he is going to be a lot better than a lot of people are kind of pitting out there. I was actually going to pin him in my sleeper, but I have a different sleeper I wanted to pin in there. So I snuck him in 5. I had him ranked closely to the last 2 guys you talked about as far as Downs and what's his name? Jaden High, who actually I interviewed his younger brother
nice.
at IB Academy. Yeah. But anyway, so my guy is gonna be Marvin Mims from Oklahoma, a guy I really like him. He had 1,000 yards last year, 6 touchdowns. A bigger kind of guy. Not bigger. I'm sorry. He's 5'11", which he's not super tall. 183 pounds. But I really like the guy. I know people are going to talk about his hand size. It was only 6 inches, but he plays really well for Oklahoma. I know people are going to talk about his wingspan, his size, which is kind of smaller, but I think he's a very productive guy, a good route runner. I think he's going to have a good potential to be a starter at some point. I've seen some mock drafts, some comparisons to Darren Mooney from the Bears. So I think that's a great comparison for him. And I really like Mims. He's very, very competitive for his size, and he's a willing blocker, which I think is a thing, especially if you're not that huge size of him. But he's definitely a willing blocker. Right? What do you think about Mims?
I like Marvin Mims. I have him right outside my top 5. And really, it was depending on him if I was going to put Downs. I also like Zay Flowers, and Mims are like
I feel like those four guys are kind of like mixed in the same kind of like.
Yes, probably day 2 picks, but guys that I think can be good productive receivers. So
correct. I agree, Ray. All right, who you got at number 4?
At number 4, I have Kayshon Boutte from LSU.
Ooh,
again,
he's not. I wish I had him on my list, man. I like him a lot. But go ahead, Ray.
I love how he's in and out of his breaks. You don't see his head move around too much. Mm-hmm. He accelerates in and out of his breaks. He basically that subtle. I hate using a player, especially a player of Marvin Harrison's capabilities. Like he reminds me of Marvin Harrison the way he runs routes coming out of Syracuse. You don't see his head move. You don't see him look. He kind of just dips his shoulder and goes. Good football player though. Again, you got to get him in the right offense, of course. But I think he's going to be a good productive player. So,
100%. My number 4 guy is a guy that most likely probably gonna be a slot guy. And I'm picking another smaller guy. This is kind of a theme in my top 5, and I get to why when I start get to my list. But another smaller guy, very productive in college. Went to a college that's not deemed as a top school, but somebody in this panel really liked this school. So I'm picking Zay Flowers, and the guy I'm talking about that I like this school is Ray. He likes Boston College. But Zay Flowers, very productive guy, smaller, being only 5'9", 182 pounds. So he's even shorter than them, but I do like him. He kind of reminds me of the kid from the Jets, that just Elijah Moore. Remind me of him a little bit. Last season, 1,700 yards, 77 yards, with 12 touchdowns, and 13 yards per reception. So he very productive on the field. Was on the field most of the time as their guy. I really like him. I know he may have a little bit of drop issues, but once you get the ball in his hand, he's electric. Like he can do. I feel like he's a better Kadarius Toney. What do you think about him, Ray?
I'm a Zay Flowers fan, man. Again, I am a Boston College. I wouldn't call him. I'm not a fan. I don't like Boston College, but I am a fan of their program. I like how they play. They play good, hard football. What's that?
Nothing.
One of my biggest most horrible memories is my Notre Dame beating Florida State to become the #1 team, and then losing to Boston College the week after. Not a fan. But I do respect their program, and I respect how hard their kids play. So,
yeah.
And I'm a Zay Flowers fan. Honestly, I could put Cedric Tillman, Marvin Mims, Zay Flowers, Josh Downs are all right in my top 5, but I had to leave somebody out. So
He can't do a 5C, 5D. So
right, exactly. So I have my top 5 guys, but again, like I said, Hyatt, Downs, Flowers, Mims are all like slot guys starting out, but could develop into like nice starters, I believe.
100%. All right, Ray, let's get to your number 3 guy. Who you got?
Number 3 guy is Jackson Smith-Njigba from Ohio State. Again, a kid.
Ray, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I will say this. I thought you was going to have him a lot higher, but go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
No, I'm a fan. But you need to remember he's coming off an injury, and we got to make sure you see him run on the field. Now, he had a nice pro day, so that made me more confident about taking him. And I do believe he could be a first-round pick and probably should be a first-round pick. Played in a big-time program. Ohio State produces wide receivers without a doubt. And he's a good route runner and a very good athlete. So I'm a fan.
Yeah. All right, my number 3 guy is a guy that my team will have kind of nightmares of right now. The guy that torched my team in the semi-championship game, Mr. Quentin Johnson from TCU. I like him. He big body frame. Biggest guy I got on my list actually. 6'3", 208 pounds. Hand size is at 9 and 5/8, which is pretty decent. I think with him, he's very explosive playmaker, very good speed. So you got that size, that that speed. You put that together, and you got a big guy. And he actually reminds me of Larry Fitzgerald in a way. But the only difference is that I don't think he can run all of the same routes. And that's why I have him at 3 instead of 2. I just feel, or even 1. I just feel like he don't run enough routes for me as a receiver. And plus, he only had 6 touchdowns. He had 1,000 yards, but he only had 6 touchdowns. Now, you could say, hey, 6 touchdowns is a good amount, but for him and his size and, playing in the Big 12, and me and you, Ray, always talk about Big 12 defense, you would think he had more than just 6 touchdowns. So that is a little concerned with me. I am a little concerned with that, but I still think he's me putting him at 3 don't mean that I think he's a bad player. I think he's a really good player. I would just love to see him run a little bit more routes. Now, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago when I didn't do as much film, I would have been like, oh yeah, no, he's my number 1 guy, especially seeing him what he did against Michigan. But I don't see him do enough routes for me. That's my opinion on that. I know you got a little bit higher, Ray, so I'll let you talk about him later on. So who's your number 2?
I have Quentin Johnson at number 2. I think, again, the upside is his size. His 22 yards a reception. He did only score 6 touchdowns, but you're talking about TCU was predominantly a run team. And the quarterback makes a lot of plays off script. Yeah. So I think that but he does need to be about better route runner, needs to polish his routes. He kind of freelances a little bit too much, which I think as part of the offense. But again, I think if you get him and can get him to run better routes, he definitely has the upside and the body to play in the NFL. So,
100%. Oh, Ray, you actually surprised me a lot because I'm getting a sense of who your number 1 guy is now. We'll get into that in a second. Well, I know who your number 1 guy is. With process of elimination, I totally thought different, but we'll talk about that when we get to that point. But my number 2 guy is actually obviously Jackson Smith at Jigba. I'll always be lean toward the guys that can run the better routes, and he does. Now, again, he was coming off an injury, so I actually would have put him at 3 if he didn't go his pro day, and he did, and he played very well. He looked very smooth. He looked really good. Ball skills is not an issue. He can, got good body control. And this is me talking as a Michigan guy, and these last 2 guys are really hurting my heart thinking about some of these guys because Nick played very well against Michigan a few years ago, and Quentin just tore us up last year. So, but both of them are really good receivers. I think they're going to be the top 3 guys. What do you think about my placement of him at 2, Ray?
I think the top 2 or 3 guys you could take, depending on what you want them to do in your offense.
Correct.
You could take any one of these 3 guys. To be honest with you,
right.
I mean, if you want a possession guy, you're going to take Johnson. Even though I think he could be a little bit more than that. Right now, you could see that part of his game and his size and his length. The Jigba, I think, is probably the best route runner of my top 3 guys. But again, coming off the injury, and I know he did look good, really good in the pro day, but it is a pro day, dude. No one's hitting you out there.
That is true.
So, it is what it is.
Yeah. All right, Ray. We already kind of alluded to it a little bit. Our number 1 guy, it looked like both of us had the same guy. So, Lorraine, I'm going to let you say his name.
Jordan Addison from USC.
Yes.
I mean, the guys had 3 ridiculously productive years in a row. Switched teams and still was very productive. So does his slight body bother me a little bit? He's 175 pounds. Yeah, it bothers me a little bit. But I think that he's a good route runner. He's got really good speed. And as fast as he looks, he plays faster in that. Yeah. So I'm a fan. So again, I think he could be these top 3 guys, I think, are guys that could settle in to be number 1 receivers on their teams. But I like Jordan Addison. I didn't like how he transferred, but that's another story for another day. So.
But yeah, I agree with you, Ray. I got Jordan Addison as well, been my top receiver for a while. Even going through this process, I don't think I could really move him too much, based on some of the things I already talked about with the last two guys. One coming off an injury, another one, not as good as of a route runner. I always, like I say, I always go for the route running guys. And like I alluded to earlier, three of the five guys on my top list are smaller guys. There's a reason for that, and it all comes down to a comparison that some people says for Jordan Addison. And if you look at a guy that can really run routes or super electric, it doesn't matter how big he is because he can get open, he can create space, he can catch the ball and get touchdowns. And a lot of that comes from a guy that's on my favorite NFL team, the Philadelphia Eagles. Devontae Smith. I mean, Devontae Smith is epitome. I think of Devontae Smith, and I'm not putting Jordan Addison and Devontae Smith in the same talent level because Devontae Smith was on a different level coming out of college. So Devontae Smith is on a different level, but he showed that in today's NFL, you can have a smaller, slimmer guy if you can run routes and get open and get off the press, which a lot of teams don't do press anymore. Like you can really take an advantage of a defense without having to be this big, massive wide receiver anymore. And Devontae Smith definitely showed that. Now, again, Devontae Smith is a different animal. That guy, he plays like a big man. Like he goes up for the ball, he high punches the ball, he take hits. He's not scared to. He different animal. So I'm not comparing anybody in this list to him, but I'm saying he is a guy that you can look at and be like, all right, we don't need to have that bigger guy anymore. Even the receiver from Buffalo Bills, and I hate when we get on here because I always forget Diggs.
Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs, smaller guy. A reason why he didn't go really high in the draft because he was a smaller guy, doing very well in the NFL. So I think having these smaller guys is definitely working out for him. And he does have smaller hands too. I would fit that in there as well. He only got 8 3/4 hands. So he did have a little drop issues, but again, he didn't show much of that last year when he was with USC. He did have 875 yards and 8 touchdowns. So I think he's very productive. I've been liking him ever since Pitt. And I think he's going to be a really, really good addition for a team that grabs him.
Agreed. I think he's a good football player. I think Devontae Smith is not a bad comparison. Mm-hmm. I just think that Devontae's – I think his length is a little bit better than his too.
Yeah.
Devontae, like the one thing I know about Devontae Smith is that whenever you hear people talk about what a great basketball player he is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like that means something. Like if you notice, the one sport that translates to football as far as like skill players, tight ends, wide receivers, are basketball players.
Yeah.
They're premier athletes, man. There's no question about that. So,
right. I agree. Yeah, especially with the agility aspect of it, being able to have to get in and out of cuts and dribble the ball at the same time. So
high point the ball.
Correct. High point the ball.
Yep.
Jumping skills, really getting up there, all that. Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's gonna do it for our top 5 guys. I hope you all like it. Let us know what you think about it in the comment section below. But we're gonna get into our next segment of this, which is talking about more receivers in the draft because it's more obviously than the top 5 guys. Right now we're gonna get into our sleeper wide receivers. So again, if you guys don't know what the sleepers are, our sleepers are guys that a lot of people are maybe not talking about or not talking about enough. Either me or Ray really likes a lot. Could be due to injury. It could be due to certain circumstances. It could be just the way the draft, the draft is. There might be, we talked about this in the running back scenario where there's so many good running backs, but one, there's not a lot of running backs going in the first round, and 2, there's so many good ones that guys are going to slide. So this is our sleeper portion. So Ray, let me hear who you got as your sleeper wide receiver.
Well, I have 3 of them, but I'll give you them quickly, okay? I got Dante Demas Jr. from Maryland, a 6'4", 215-pound player who I think could be a nice possession type of a guy. I got Bryce Ford Wheaton from West Virginia, another 6'3", 225-pound kid. Again, a kid who I could be a nice possession guy. And I had to put this guy in only because of the combine. Matt Landers from Arkansas. He, as a gunner, a special teamer, this kid's probably could even go undrafted. Yeah. He was 6'4", 210 pounds, around a 4.3, 940. The kid has potential to, if nothing else, be a standout special teamer. So,
I agree, and that size and speed, man, you can't find that anywhere. So you gotta take a flyer on some guys sometimes. Mm-hmm. My sleeper guy is a guy that I think was wholeheartedly a sleeper into the Senior Bowl, and I feel like his name is getting raised a little bit more than it should be, but he's still projected as a third, fourth round pick. So I figured, hey, he's still somewhat of a sleeper to me. One of my favorite route runners in here, very productive, 1,300 yards, 17 touchdowns last year, very, very productive. Played for Houston, Mr. Nathaniel Tank Dell. Very, very good receiver. Smaller guy, only 5'8". Again, I'm picking small guys. Only 165 pounds, so the weight is definitely a reason why he's not being looked at as a guy, but very, very productive guy. Moved very smoothly in his route running. If you guys are following Jim Nagy on Instagram, he constantly posts a video of him running his routes, and he creates a lot of room just on his routes alone. Our very own Lamarcus Bailey actually comped him as Antonio Brown. So, and I do see it with the route running. I don't know if it's on the same level, but man, this kid can route run out his behind, and he'll be a great slot receiver for somebody looking for somebody with his caliber. Ray, what do you think about Tank?
I'm a fan. I actually have him projected as like a fourth or a fifth round pick. I think as a slot player right off the bat, he can do some things for you. My only question is, can he return?
Yeah.
Has he done any returning? I don't know that.
So he did it at the Senior Bowl, and he didn't look that smooth at it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If you're going to be that fourth, fifth receiver, you're going to have to do at least something on the special team. So.
Yeah, I don't think they asked him to do a lot of it well, I'm looking at this article right here. It's saying that he did do it. He didn't look that smooth
during the season.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. When seeing him at the Senior Bowl and he was practicing it, he didn't look smooth doing it. I think he dropped it twice. So he didn't look that smooth at it. But again, if he can work at it, I think he could be dynamic back there for sure. So, all right, let's get to our next segment, which is going to be the small school guys. So small school guys are guys that go to small schools. Obviously, the small school guys don't get as much publicity as some of these other guys from the Power Five, don't have the same type of competition. But we still think there's a lot of talent in there to be, looked upon. And there's just plenty of guys throughout the seasons and years that it does this because, again, you don't look at them as these big guys because they don't, have a lot of production against quality defenses or offensive. So with that being said, Ray, who is one of your small school guys?
I have Demario Douglas from Liberty. Again, 5'8", 170, 6th, 7th round pick, slot guy who can do some things for you. Actually did some returning at Liberty. I think he can do some things for you as a special teamer. Maybe he's a practice squad guy for right off the bat until he gets a little bit stronger. But I like him. And I actually like Michael Jefferson from Louisiana too. He's more of a 6'4", 200-pound guy. He does need to get a little bit stronger. But I like both of them players. I was just going back to Nathaniel Dell. Jerome, do you know what his stats were for last year?
Yeah, he had 17 touchdowns.
He had 109 receptions, 1,400 yards, 17 touchdowns.
His quarterback in the draft process now really relied on him in the game and doing.
He's gonna play somewhere. There's no question about that.
100%. His production that reason why I pay him as a sleeper. His production was insane. Like if you watch his film, and LaMarcus Bailey did a breakdown on him as well, during one of his film breakdowns. This kid can move, and like they would put him in a slot, make him do a quick slant, catch it and go, And the thing about him, and I know we going backwards and reverting back to Tank Dell, but Tank Dell played kind of big. Like he would go up and get the ball. He would get hit.
I have listings of him at like slightly under 5'10" too.
Yeah. I believe I had it at 5'9", 165 pounds. So he's small. He's a thin guy. But his route running is insane. His route running is really, really
I was actually checking to see if there's any return stats. I didn't see anything like that.
Yeah.
But his receiving numbers are ridiculous. So
Oh yeah. So he's definitely a guy. Again, sleeper. I feel like people are starting to know his name a little bit more, especially since after the Senior Bowl. But I still kind of consider him as a sleeper. But he's super, super productive.
I think the offense he plays in, where people are a little afraid of that.
Yeah, 100%.
They do throw the ball a lot, so.
Yeah, they do. Let's get to our next. My sleeper. Small school guy. A guy that we got to interview probably like 3-4 years ago, and every year I'm like waiting for him to get in the draft. I'm like, what's going on? He was actually a 6-year senior, so he got a lot of experience behind him. So he's actually a really good player. He got some of that COVID eligibility to be able to stay at his old school, which was South Alabama. A guy that we got to see at the Senior Bowl and a really good guy is Jalen Wayne, who's actually the nephew of Reggie Wayne. Really good kid. I really like him. Big body guy. Definitely the opposite of what I've been talking about on my list lately. But 6'2", 210 pounds, 9 3/8 hands, 32-inch arm length. Ran a 4.5, which is, again, I know like nowadays everybody's looking for the 4.4 and under. 4.5 is still really good, especially for a guy that size. So I like him a lot. He's just a very solid guy. I feel like he can be somebody that can be a really good number 2 and might even be even better than that. But he's a really good guy. Really good at his route running, especially considering he's a big guy. I just think that he don't have a lot of yards at your catch kind of guy. He's not going to be that guy to catch it, go up the field. He's not really that guy. He's more of a catch, get go on the ground kind of guy. He don't have a lot of agility kind of situation with him, but really solid guy. You can throw it up to him. He'll catch it. Really reliable hands. And I really like this guy. What do you think about Jalen Wayne, Ray?
I like him. I like him as a route runner. You can tell he's played a lot of football. Mm-hmm. I do worry about him getting off of press coverage. It seems like when guys got their hands off him, he had a hard time getting off the line of scrimmage. But I don't worry about that as much in today's NFL. People run so many jet sweeps. They run like different formations where you can get guys open if you need to. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah, you can scheme up people, get them open.
You can.
So that's gonna do it for us with our wide receivers, Ray. Man, I liked our list, both of them. I was very surprised with how our list actually compared to each other because the top 3 guys, I was like, Ray's not gonna have anything close to this, and Jordan Addison at 1, both of us had him. Jigba and Quentin, we kind of had our differences, but we just flip flop those guys. And then 4 to 5, I feel like again those guys are kind of in a bunch where it's not that much of a difference. So I really do like our list, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like where I have my guys rated. Again, it's like really weird because the top 3 guys I think will be first round picks. But then after that second round, you're going to see a lot of wide receivers go in that second round, I think.
Mm-hmm. Correct. 100%. I agree. But yeah, that's going to do it for us wide receivers today, guys. And let's get into Ray's rant. I mean, we kind of ended a little early today, but let's get to Ray's rant real quick. What you got for us, Ray?
I have a good and bad subject. Do you know who Jim Trotter is?
Jim Trotter sounds very familiar.
He was a guy who worked for ESPN and some other sport outlets.
Yeah.
The NFL.
Yeah.
He was just let go by the NFL.
Wow.
Yeah, well, this is a message for everybody, man. Okay. And this is, I hate to say it, this is a microcosm of our government, of our country in general. They're going to fire Jim Trotter because he basically questioned Roger Goodell about, hiring more minorities. And was wondering why there's still no minorities in the newsroom or, reporters. And Roger Goodell put his leg between his tail, ran back and cried to the owners. So they're going to fire this guy now. Okay, well, this is what I mean. Like, Jerome, I've said this to you before. If our government really cared about racism as much as we do, they would sit down and do something about it. But they don't. Because you have all these rich white people that sit around, that run everything, that don't care that there's no change. They really don't care. Like, you're going to tell me that Jim Trotter deserved to get fired for bringing up something we've been talking about for what, 30 years now? 5 years really strong, like really, really strong. This is why I hate to go back to the Brian Flores thing. Dude, don't go after individual owners. Go after the owners that are the problem. You know it as well as I do. There are owners out there that still have that good old boy mentality to them. And either the real answer is you got to have minorities, some minorities that own teams. So they're in them meeting rooms and they hear what's going on. But honestly, Jerome, I don't know if they're going to let that ever happen because they like it status quo, man.
Yeah.
They don't really care about getting more minorities in the workplace. How can you have no black or minority reporters when the league is 70% black?
Yeah.
I mean,
we don't have any owners either.
No, we don't. And we know why, because here's the thing, Jerome. Everyone's saying, oh yeah, we want to get more minorities involved in the NFL. And then behind closed doors are saying exactly the opposite. Mm-hmm. Okay. No different than anybody else in this than our government and everybody else that runs everything in this country. They really don't care about getting any more minorities in the work. They just pretend like they do because that's what they want. Everybody wants to hear. I mean, I listened to this one station down in Miami, and there's this one guy, Big O, and I think he's Cuban or he's Hispanic or something. I heard he reported this to me this morning about Jim Trotter losing his job, and he went off. And I was so glad to hear that he did. But you know what, Jerome? Roger Goodell just got re-upped for another 5 years, making like $40 million a year to do what? What does he do?
Yeah.
What does he do?
Yeah, I'm looking at some articles now about Jim Trotter. That is crazy.
Yeah, they're like, well, and here's the thing. When I did too. I heard the article, I heard the report that I heard from the Big O this morning. And then I went and I read a couple of these articles that I just used Google to. And it's the same thing. Roger Goodell has nothing to do with the firing of. He's a liar. Okay? Plain as flat out liar. Okay?
Shame. It's a shame. All right. Well, that's gonna do it for us today, guys. Off on a kind of sad note, but let's end on a good note because next week we'll be doing our mock draft next week, and I'm super excited about it because we're gonna have some really cool visuals. We're gonna have our mock drafts on screen and pin it all together, and we are really preparing for something really cool and fun with this mock draft. So make sure you guys definitely come back next week and tune in to see what we do for our mock drafts. If you love mock drafts, definitely come in next week You're gonna definitely come into a doozy because me and Ray have different opinions when it comes to mock drafts. Our mock drafts is always way different. So it's very cool and very fun to see how our mock draft goes. So like I said, we're gonna take a little break from our top five. We're gonna get back into our top five. We're gonna go back into our defenses the following week. But next week we'll do our mock drafts.
I want to say this though, Jerome, before we get off. I mean, people need to remember we're like, believe it or not, we're like running out of time now. So we're going to do a mock draft, and then we're going to do defensive linemen.
Correct.
And then linebackers and defensive backs. All bing, 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 3 consecutive weeks. And then it's going to be defensive linemen, not just tackles, ends, both together, or edge players. And then linebackers.
That's what we do, right? We'll do it on the same day instead of it being separate. Right. We'll do it on the same day, but it'll still be, So we're gonna match in a lot of positions. So it'll be interior and defensive line or edge rushers. Then we're gonna have off-ball linebackers, et cetera, corner safety staff like that. So we do it like that. And then obviously the week after it should be the draft, and then we'll do our mock draft the day before the draft, and then day of the draft. We'll probably have a live stream on the draft day, like we usually do each year. Still kind of working that out in the background, but definitely make sure you stay tight and hang tight. And with that being said, make sure you go like and subscribe to this YouTube channel that you're watching live right now with that QR code right there, right under Ray. Go ahead, Ray. You got it. First time, let's go. So make sure you like and subscribe on that. Make sure you hit that notification button to know when we are live. Can't catch us live, that's perfectly fine. Go back, watch this video, and on top of all our other top 5 videos, so you can know who we put in there. And if you have any questions about any players, or you want us to talk about a little bit extensively on a player that maybe we didn't talk about, make sure you hit that in the comment section below. We comment on every comment all the time. So that's gonna do it for us today, guys. Mock draft next week. Again, reminding you again, so do not forget, it's going to be a doozy. It's going to be great. And looking forward to doing it, man. We got some interviews that's coming out soon, so make sure you stay locked with Inside the Hashes. We got some interviews. We're going to interview some players that are going to be drafted this year as well. So I'm Jerome Jones. That's Ray Roberts. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. This is the RPO podcast presented by Inside the Hashes. Thank you guys so much, and see you in the next one. Peace.